When I was 12 years old, my parents sat me down at the kitchen table and told me something that would shape the rest of my life. My father folded his hands, looked me straight in the eye and said, "Your brother will always need us more than you do." At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. I thought maybe Ryan was going through something difficult. Maybe he needed extra support. Maybe it was temporary. I was wrong. What my father really meant was that no matter what happened, Ryan would always come first. And for the next 20 years, he did. My name is Daniel. I grew up in a small suburban neighborhood with my parents and my older brother Ryan. From the outside, we looked like a normal family. Inside our home, however, there were two very different sets of rules. One for Ryan, and one for me. Ryan was the golden child, the favorite, the center of attention, the child who could do absolutely no wrong. If Ryan forgot to clean his room, my parents laughed and said boys would be boys. If I forgot to clean mine, I lost my allowance for a week. If Ryan got average grades, my parents celebrated his effort. If I brought home straight A's, they asked what happened to the missing points. At first I thought I was imagining it. I convinced myself that maybe I was being sensitive. But as the years passed, the difference became impossible to ignore. Every birthday felt like proof. When Ryan turned 16, my parents surprised him with a brand new car. The entire family came over to celebrate. There were balloons, a huge cake, dozens of gifts. My father stood in the driveway proudly handing Ryan the keys while everyone cheered. When I turned 16 a year later, I received a used bicycle. No party, no relatives, no excitement, just a bicycle and a quick happy birthday before everyone moved on with their day. I smiled and thanked them, but that night I sat in my room wondering what I had done wrong. The answer, as it turned out, was nothing. The problem wasn't me. The problem was that Ryan was their golden child. And golden children don't have to earn love. They simply receive it. As we got older, the gap continued to grow. Ryan played soccer. Every game felt like the World Cup. My parents attended every match. They took photos, posted about him online, talked endlessly about his potential. I joined the debate team and won regional competitions. Most of the time, my parents didn't even show up. One Saturday, I won first place at a major competition. I was excited to tell them. When I got home, I found them watching one of Ryan's old soccer highlights. My father barely looked up when I told him about my trophy. "That's nice," he said. Then he turned back toward the television. I carried that trophy upstairs and placed it on a shelf. Nobody ever asked about it again. Over time, I stopped expecting anything. I stopped asking for attention, stopped asking for praise, stopped asking for help. I learned that disappointment hurts less when you don't get your hopes up. Then came college. I worked hard throughout high school. Long nights, extra classes, countless hours studying. Eventually, I was accepted into one of the best universities in the country. For the first time, I thought maybe things would change. Maybe now my parents would see me. Maybe now they would be proud. When the acceptance letter arrived, I rushed into the living room. My mother smiled. My father nodded. Then both of them exchanged a strange look. A few days later, they asked me to sit down. I knew something was wrong immediately. My mother wouldn't make eye contact. My father kept clearing his throat. Finally, he spoke. "We can't help pay for your tuition." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. For years, they had promised to help with college. They talked about it constantly. So what changed? Then they told me. Ryan needed money. Again. He had dropped out of school after one semester. Started a business. Failed. Started another. Failed again. And my parents had used nearly all their savings trying to help him succeed. The money they had saved for my education was gone. Every cent. Gone. Because Ryan had another dream. I sat there silently. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream. But honestly, I wasn't surprised. A part of me had seen it coming. So instead of arguing, I got a job. Then another. And another. I took student loans. Worked weekends. Missed parties. Skipped vacations. Lived on instant noodles and coffee. While I was struggling to survive, Ryan continued living at home. My parents paid his bills. covered his expenses, funded every new idea he came up with. And every time one of those ideas failed, they rescued him again. Meanwhile, I learned something important. When nobody is coming to save you, you become stronger than you ever thought possible. College was difficult, but I graduated. Then I found a decent job, worked hard, earned promotions, saved money, built connections, and little by little I created a life for myself. Ryan, on the other hand, continued drifting from one failure to the next. Every family gathering followed the same pattern. Ryan had another crisis, another emergency, another opportunity that required financial support. And every time my parents rushed to help him, they sold investments, refinanced loans, borrowed money, made sacrifices, anything to keep Ryan afloat. One evening, after years of this cycle, my father called me. He sounded nervous. After a few minutes of small talk, he finally got to the point. Ryan needed $10,000. Another business opportunity. Another chance to turn things around. Another promise that this time would be different. I listened quietly. Then I said no. The silence on the other end of the phone was immediate. My father sounded shocked. My mother later called me selfish. Selfish. The word stayed with me. After everything I had gone through, I was selfish for refusing to finance another one of Ryan's failures. For the first time in my life, I stood my ground, and I refused to apologize for it. Years passed. My career continued growing. Eventually, I started my own company. The first year was brutal. I worked 18-hour days, handled every problem myself, lost sleep, missed holidays, questioned whether I was making a terrible mistake. But slowly, things improved. Clients arrived. Revenue increased. The business grew. 5 years later, the company was thriving. For the first time in my life, I felt truly successful. Not because someone gave me an opportunity, not because someone rescued me, but because I earned it. Around that same time, my parents made a decision that shocked everyone, including me. They transferred ownership of their home to Ryan. The entire house, their most valuable asset, the place they had spent decades paying off. Friends warned them. Relatives warned them. Even their lawyer warned them. But my parents refused to listen. They believed Ryan would always take care of them. After all, he was their golden child, their favorite son, the one they had sacrificed everything for. A few months later, Ryan convinced them to co-sign a massive business loan. Again, they agreed. Again, they trusted him completely. Again, they ignored every warning. Then everything fell apart. Ryan's newest business failed. Not a small failure, a catastrophic failure. The debts were enormous. The creditors came after everything. The business collapsed. The loan payments stopped. And because my parents had guaranteed the debt, they were held responsible. Within months, they lost nearly everything. The house was gone. Their savings disappeared. Their retirement plans vanished. Years of hard work evaporated almost overnight. And then the unthinkable happened. Ryan disappeared. No phone calls. No visits. No support. No explanations. Nothing. The son they had protected for decades vanished the moment things became difficult. The same child they had chosen over everyone else simply walked away. Months passed. My parents tried reaching him. He ignored them. They left messages, sent texts, asked relatives for help. Nothing worked. Ryan was gone. One rainy evening, my phone rang. It was my mother. I hadn't heard from her in months. The moment she spoke, I knew something was wrong. Her voice sounded weak, fragile, broken. For the first time in my life, she wasn't calling about Ryan. She was calling about herself. And my father. Their finances were in ruins. Their health was deteriorating. And they didn't know what to do. I listened quietly. Part of me felt angry. Part of me remembered every disappointment, every ignored achievement, every sacrifice, every moment I came second. But another part of me heard fear in my mother's voice. Real fear. The kind that comes when life finally catches up with you. A few days later, I visited them. The family home was gone. The beautiful house where I grew up had been replaced by a small apartment. The moment I walked inside, I barely recognized them. They looked older, smaller, defeated. For the first time, they didn't look like the parents who always had answers. They looked like two people who had made terrible mistakes. My mother started crying almost immediately. My father stared silently at the floor. Then my mother said 4 words I never thought I would hear. We were wrong. Just 4 words. Yet somehow they carried 20 years of pain. That night we talked for hours. Longer than we had talked in years. For the first time, there were no excuses. No justifications. No attempts to defend their choices. They admitted everything. The favoritism. The double standards. The unfair treatment. All of it. My father eventually looked up and said something I'll never forget. We thought helping Ryan was love. His voice cracked. Then he continued. But somewhere along the way, we stopped seeing what it was doing to him. And we stopped seeing what it was doing to you. The room fell silent. I could see the regret in their eyes. Real regret. The kind that arrives years too late. The truth was simple. They hadn't helped Ryan. Not really. They had protected him from consequences for so long that he never learned responsibility. Every mistake had been rescued. Every failure had been excused. Every bad decision had been covered by someone else. And eventually, he became exactly what they had trained him to become. Dependent, entitled, irresponsible. Meanwhile, all the neglect they directed toward me had forced me to become independent, strong, self-reliant. The irony was almost unbelievable. The child they worried least about became the one who survived. And the child they worried about constantly became the one who couldn't function without help. For a long time, I carried resentment. Years of it. But sitting there that night, looking at my parents, something changed. I realized revenge wouldn't fix anything. Their punishment had already arrived. They were living with it every day. The son they had sacrificed everything for had abandoned them. And the son they had ignored was the only one still sitting beside them. In the months that followed, I helped them rebuild. Not because they deserved forgiveness. Not because the past disappeared. But because I refused to let bitterness control my life. Slowly, things improved. Their finances stabilized. Their health improved. And our relationship began healing. The scars never completely disappeared. Some wounds never do. But for the first time, we were honest with each other. As for Ryan, he still rarely calls. Sometimes months go by without anyone hearing from him. The golden child eventually became a stranger. And the forgotten child became family. People often ask whether I regret helping my parents after everything that happened. The answer is no. Because helping them wasn't about what they deserved. It was about who I wanted to be. And if there's one lesson I've learned from this experience, it's that favoritism doesn't help children. It damages everyone involved. It teaches one child that rules don't apply to them. And it teaches another child that love must be earned. Eventually, both children pay the price. And so do the parents. The saddest part is that many parents don't realize the damage until it's too late. Until relationships are broken. Until trust is gone. Until years have passed that can never be recovered. So if you're listening to this story and you're a parent, remember this. Children don't need a favorite. They need fairness. They need guidance. They need accountability. And most of all, they need love that isn't conditional. Because one day, the child you overlook may become the person standing beside you when everyone else walks away. And by then, you'll wish you had treated them differently from the very beginning.